Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. This is episode 510. Yes, you heard that right. We're crazy people who've recorded over 500 episodes, but you know what? We're okay with that. We've made peace with that. We like getting together when we can, when schedules align, when it's not a busy summer full of travel and work and all the things, to talk about something near and dear to our hearts. That, of course, being movies. We love them. We love seeing them. And we love talking about them even more, especially with you fine, wonderful folks. And for me personally, it is the highlight of my week when I get a chance to get together with my fantastic, fantabulous, fan something else co-hosts.
Fandangoist.
Fandangoist. There you go. We are the original Husky Harry Huggable homos who love film. The Movie Bears podcast is back in the saddle for episode 510, and I literally couldn't do the episode without two people you've already heard from. Jim Pugliafico is with us in the virtual studio, i.e. 10 feet down the hallway behind a closed door. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing okay. I'm glad to be back with you guys, doing the show. I mean, babe, I'm always mostly with you, but it's good to be back with the band all together here and talking about a big movie this week. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I missed it. I mean, like, it's been a few weeks, and like every week I'm like, God, I missed it. And when we finally get a chance to do it again, we'll just dust off the equipment and get it done. And I'm happy to be doing it.
Good. Well, glad to have you here. And you're right. This is a very big episode because we are going to be reviewing Deadpool and Wolverine. Seems like everybody on the planet is seeing this movie, maybe for good reason, question mark. Does it live up to the hype? We'll find out. I want to pick your thoughts, Jim. And I also want to hear thoughts from the wonderful William Lindis, who is also with us here, coming at us from thousands of miles away. But Will, it's just like you're in my office, separated by a pane of glass right now. How are you?
Doing great. It's been a while since we've been in the saddle, just like you mentioned. Yeah, we just had a lot of different things happening that were important that we needed to take care of. And so we, as we decide and as we know, sometimes we have to take care of ourselves and our personal lives before we get back to the show. But the show is always there, right? It's always a thing that we can jump back in and do. And I've missed doing this with y'all. I've missed talking movies with y'all. Few movies have come out since we last recorded. Last one, Inside Out 2. So I'm very curious how you guys felt about today's really big review. And then offline, I want to talk your brains out about all the other movies that have kind of happened in between.
Indeed. I know we've been away for a few weeks, and we've seen a bunch of movies, but this is our first time getting together. And normally we might just do like a movie catch-up episode, right? Talk about the films we've seen, but maybe we'll save some of those for plugs because Deadpool and Wolverine, come on, that's what everyone's talking about right now. And I think we have some thoughts. And I also think George in the chat has some thoughts as well. We haven't officially kicked off the movie conversation, but let's put his comment on screen. George says this was by far the best Deadpool ever, with like 25 R's.
Ever.
Is George correct? Question mark.
Do we
agree?
He
Question
can't be
mark.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into it, and we are gonna find out. Before we dive into our review, though, I will go ahead and say this for anybody that is maybe new to the format of our show, or it's been a few weeks since you listened and you forgot how it works. We're going to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, totally spoiler free, for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we will give you ample, we are talking super ample warning before we take things to spoiler pound town. So you'll have time to jettison if you need to. If you do not consent to spoilers, it is your responsibility to remove yourself from the environment. Whether you are listening live, you can step away for 30 minutes, come on back at the end for plugs. You don't want to miss those. Or if you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Music, Spotify, however you tune in to our show. Use the time index in the show notes to skip around as needed. All of that said, Jim, Will, are you ready to get into this discussion?
Yeah, let's get down to business.
Let's fucking go.
All right. Here we go then. Our discussion of Deadpool and Wolverine. All right. David Patrick says,
Whoa.
my favorite part was when we found out Wolverine is Deadpool's father, LMAO.
Oh, spoilers!
Spoilers right out of the fucking gate. No, just kidding. That's totally not a thing, David Patrick says. But David Patrick, it is good to see you. We miss you and Bill.
Wow.
Hope you guys are doing well. Good to see you pop up.
Good to see you, DP. Deadpool. Oh, David Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I heard DP and I went to double penetration in my head.
Yeah,
but,
well,
yeah.
I guess
That might happen.
That's
when you
always
talk
where you
about
go first,
when you
Brad.
talk about certain people, that's what happens.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, let's kick this motherfucker off. By the way, we are earning our explicit tag tonight. That is the second instance of fuck. Oops, that's a third for a Deadpool movie. I think that's to be expected. But Jim, if you don't mind, kick this one off for us.
Sure.
I think most people know what the fuck for Deadpool is by now, but what is the quick setup of this film? And beyond that, what were your non-spoiler, of course, thoughts on this film?
Sure. Well, first of all, off the top, since this is an R-rated feature, Deadpool and Wolverine is an R-rated movie. I think is this the first one to be R-rated, or were the other ones R-rated?
I think the other ones were.
I think they were.
Steve.
They
Yeah.
were?
Yeah.
Okay. This
Yeah.
one, for some reason, to me, seems more R-rated than the previous ones. But yeah. So this show will be R plus rated. How about that? Yeah. So we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. This is like the third Deadpool movie, correct?
Yes.
In a
Uh-huh.
series of movies by whatever studios are producing them these days. First one was Deadpool. This one's Deadpool. Then there was Deadpool 2, which was actually 6 years ago. Can you believe that? That was 6 years ago. And now we've got Deadpool and Wolverine. So I will give a. Of course, we have. We have Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds in this. I will refrain from mentioning other appearances in this because I don't know which co-stars that I read might be like cameo spoilers and stuff, but there are a bunch of other people in this movie, of course, some of which are surprises. So I'm going to leave those off to the side. A lot of people probably know a lot of them, especially if you've seen the movie, of course. But if you read through IMDb, you'll see. But there were plenty of surprises in this movie, so I'll stay away from those till we get to spoilers. So here's the non-spoilery synopsis, I think. So I'll just get to it. Deadpool's peaceful existence comes crashing down when the Time Variance Authority, otherwise known as the TVA, recruits him to help safeguard the multiverse. He soon unites with his would-be pal Wolverine to complete the mission and save his world from an existential threat. So there you go. There's the kind of non-spoilery thing. To me, I'm not so sure any of that makes sense. I am not a dive deep into the MCU guy or into the whatever multiverse was before MCU for Deadpool. Was he a DC guy or is it Sony or what the hell was it?
So Fox.
Well, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me
No,
now?
I hear him.
Yeah.
I hear him.
Oh no,
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oops.
Well, that's not
Sorry,
good.
guys.
All right, we're gonna
Sorry.
pause
I'm
for technical
back.
difficulties.
I'm back.
You can hear
Can
me.
you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. My
Okay.
computer just freaked out for a second, and for some reason activated Siri, and I couldn't hear you. All I could see was a spinny cosmic
All right.
ball.
Well, let's
Yeah.
dig back
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
rewind it, I forget where we were and what we were talking
I just said that I'm not so sure like where the Marvel universe Deadpool starts and the previous Deadpool started either. So, but I do know that the TVA is a Marvel thing. I think the first time I saw it or learned of it was in the Loki series. I think that's for me. I think that's when it kind of first appeared, or when I knew of it. But again, I don't think I understand hardly any of what's going on. But listen, I had a blast with this movie. We caught a pretty late screening of it. It was like 9:30 or something like that, on a Saturday night after we had a busy day, after we had eaten out, game night with friends and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm never gonna fucking make it through this Marvel movie. Like I'll probably be asleep. And we were even talking going in, both of us. We went with friends. And we're like, if you feel me nodding off or hear me nodding off, please wake me up at least a couple times. But guess what? I didn't fall asleep once. I stayed awake. This movie was a lot of fun. And it just proves to me like a movie doesn't have to be like a cinematic masterpiece or have even an understandable plot. I mean, to me, at least, it didn't really make a lot of sense, but it was still a lot of fun because you understand some of the characters, what they're doing. It was damn funny. The action was over the top crazy. And there were some things going on. There's always something happening, popping up that keeps your interest. I really, really like this movie, surprisingly. I wasn't a huge fan of Deadpool coming in. I can't say I'm a big Deadpool fan now either, but this movie really did provided a lot of bang for the buck for me. So yeah, this is a recommend. I mean, theaters have been packed this weekend. I guess it's setting all kinds of records. So a lot of people are seeing this movie. This is not a, hey, go out and see this movie, because guess what? Everybody already is. But for me, I think this movie is definitely worth the money. If you can afford it, I think it's worth a night out at the movies to go see.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for weighing in. While we've been chatting, we've got some comments coming in the live chat. Dave from Denver says, yay, movie bears. I'm gonna get a sock. I hope that whatever you fill that sock with,
clean or crusty, doesn't matter,
makes for an enjoyable time. And then Cisco Salgado, who Jim and I got to meet in Albuquerque last fall. Cisco's here. He says, good to see all of you together again. Hugs and kisses, Cisco. Hugs and kisses right back to you. Good to see you here as well. We also have one more comment, and Jim, this is a special anniversary for us.
It is.
Because Jordan Riley, hey Jordan, he says, by the way,
one and only Jordan.
It's been 6 years since I met Brad and Jim. We saw the second Deadpool, and I got a chance to meet them. It was a great weekend. Jordan, yes, that was a really fun weekend. Very, very fun to meet you.
Wedding weekend.
Get to hang out. Yep, we were in town for a wedding, and things happen at weddings, and you meet people, and fun things happen, and you go see movies with them. So Jordan, we were thinking of you when we saw the third Deadpool movie. So great to see you show up here. William Lindis, I am very, very interested to know what you thought of Deadpool and Wolverine. I've been waiting many days now since we saw the movie, like 3 days ago. I guess 3 is many, to find out what you think. Where did you come down, Will?
So I'm usually the guy that kind of comes in here with like the kind of the MCU, or at least the Marvel Comics sort of like background and interest, and this is sort of like up my alley kind of stuff. So I came into this one pretty darn excited to see what the end of the Fox era of Marvel movies would look like. So little super quick backstory. Fox made all of the X-Men movies. They made they made Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Elektra, Blade, a few of those movies, especially kind of that late 90s, kind of early aughts, but with the X-Men movies being kind of the most long-lasting of them. Since being acquired by Disney, now all of those properties is reverted back under Disney Marvel's control. And so this is the officially kind of the farewell song to that entire era of Fox films, right? This is them, closing the door on that and opening up the possibility for some of these characters appearing in the MCU. So I was a little surprised that I ended up with an opposite reaction to you, Jim, in that you went in kind of not as excited and found yourself enthused, and I went in really excited and fell a little short of it. I still had fun. Yeah. This is a fun movie with a lot of fun things happening in it. I'll kind of highlight some of my good and my bad on this. The script and the plot is a nothing burger, but that's okay. It's really just, it is the thinnest amount of like fishing wire kind of set to, used to hold up set piece after set piece after set piece. And that's really what this film is going for. It wants to give you less of a overall experience and more like a series of experiential moments that you can kind of like fist pump to. And there's nothing wrong with that. I wish there was a little more kind of hanging on the bones on it. There are a couple of scenes, especially kind of one multi-person fight towards the end of the movie that just sort of comes out of nowhere and doesn't really go anywhere. And it sort of felt like it dragged the runtime a little bit. This is the most, I don't know if this is true in perception or in fact, but this felt like the most talky Deadpool movie in that, like, it's the one where he's the quippiest. He has a lot of times where, the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool just won't shut up. And that got like, Deadpool's one of those characters where a little bit goes a long way. And so it did grate me a little bit, just the more he went on. That said, Hugh Jackman's like in another movie altogether. Like the last couple of outings that we've had with him, Logan and this, the dude packs so much gravitas that like you can't help feel the sincerity come through there. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot to say for like a good chunk of the movie until his stuff really kicks in. So I kind of wish that there was a little bit more of him a little bit earlier on in some way, shape, or form so that I could latch onto him. It felt like by the time that I finally got to his story and what was going on, I was already a little exhausted. The cameos are fun, especially if you are a fan of any of those like Fox movies that came before. And I do want to say, like, there's certainly kind of knowing your audience, right? And this is a movie that understands the exact fandom that built up kind of during that late 90s, early aughts with those films, and understands how much those mean to them and really wanted to give them a swan song to really, go out with a bang on. Could they have, I wish, when we get to the spoilers, we'll talk about some of those cameos. And I think there's maybe a few more that I wish we could have had, and a few that, maybe didn't work as well. Overall, it's fun. I'm not going to rush out and see it again. I enjoyed my time in the theater. And if anything, it really just makes me want another Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman. Like that was my real takeaway. I want more of that. I want more of some of the stuff that kind of surrounds him. Give me that, because that was cool as shit.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts. I wondered if it might be a little bit of a dimmer experience for you, and it sounds like compared to Jim, maybe it was. But still a lot of fun. That's good to hear. For me, this movie was absolute fucking trash. Just kidding, of course.
He's lying. I heard him laughing.
You did. In fact, Jim, how much did you hear me laughing?
A
during that
lot,
movie?
like way more than which surprised the hell out of me. Like way more than I've heard you laugh in many movies. I know that you loved Inside Out and Inside Out 2, which we talked about on previous
Hmm.
show, for different reasons, obviously. But this is the most I've heard you laugh in a movie, like a comedy movie, in a long time. As you say, comedy is weird for you, right? You know,
It is.
just like the Republicans, comedy is weird for you. So anyway, never mind. That joke might go
What?
over.
We'll
Well,
talk offline. It's a thing happening
You
right
didn't
now.
call me a Republican, though. Just
no,
making
no, no, no,
sure,
no, no,
right?
no.
No, no, no.
I said like
Okay.
the Republicans, comedy is weird for you.
Oh,
Like
okay.
they are weird. That's,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. I was
Anyway,
about to flip a table. Anyway.
no, 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 don't flip a table. Don't flip a table on me. But no, yeah, you laughed a lot, so I knew you really dug this movie, and I think it kind of whatever it was doing comedically was hitting your weird little funny bone.
It absolutely was. So I have a
Yeah.
weird history with these movies. Um, the first one I saw the day I got out of the hospital after having my gallbladder removed. I'm like all stitched up, and the first thing we do isn't go home. It isn't go see the cats. It's go see a movie together because I was in the hospital for a week, not seeing movies with Jim. And I think maybe that tamped down my experience a little because I'm like sitting there, like holding my guts together, like watching this movie, and laughing hurt. It physically hurt me. And so I was like, damn, why did we see this movie? But it was so funny that, like, it was literally putting my health at risk, but held it together, literally. Second movie, as Jordan alluded earlier, we were in Denver for the wedding of Sammy D, a dear friend. And we ended up seeing this movie, but like, wedding weekends, new people, all the
Lots to do.
things, lots to do. And so we're trying to squeeze a movie in there, and it was fun, but I think my mind was kind of in other places. And I don't know if that impacted the experience, but it just didn't seem to land as well for me as the first one did. So heading into this third one, I was like, oh, here we go, another Deadpool movie. The first one was funny. The second one really didn't do a whole lot for me, but the third one, we'll see. And then Jim, as you called out, I was laughing constantly, to the point that I was hurting in a Deadpool movie again, but it wasn't from surgery this time. It was just from belly laughing so much that it was actually making my sides sore. And
And it was
I
not from
can't remember.
substances either.
No, it wasn't. And I can't remember the last time that a comedy did that for me. Y'all have kind of alluded to a couple things I really want to dive into, and spoilers. It's no secret that this movie is chock full of cameos, and there are a bunch to talk about. I will just say the plot of this movie is a little lazy and it's a little trite. But that said, I think this is one of my favorite movies of the year. We're almost at the end of July. There's only a few months left. Oscar season's coming. Who knows if it'll get, punted out of my top 10. But right now it's pretty far up there. And Will, like you said, this film really left me wanting another Wolverine movie. And not necessarily a Wolverine comedy movie. I feel like I got that. I ticked that box. But I want another serious Wolverine movie. And I was a little worried about Wolverine because Logan was such a fucking great place to leave
Film.
that character. And I just found out our friend Kevin, former roommate, has never seen Logan. And he saw the movie with us. And I'm like, there's a giant hole. Like, you have to
Oh, wow.
get that hole filled and then see this movie. So we're going to work on filling his hole, and maybe he'll see it again. I don't know. But I was just like, are we really going to trot Wolverine back out? Like, how is that going to go? And he ended up Hugh Jackman did an incredible job in this film. So hopefully we get more of this Wolverine. I don't know if we will or not. But I'm glad this movie exists. I had a really fun time with it. A little Ryan Reynolds goes a long way for me, but I don't know. The comedy, the writing was just so smart this time. Normally, I'm not the hugest fan of all the quippy Marvel quippy, but it really worked here. So glad I saw this. Obviously, big recommend. David Patrick says he was grabbing his pearls during
That's
the
when
movie.
he thought I called you a Republican.
Oh, that's what he thought.
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
okay. Well, all right. Well, I grabbed my pearls
It's not what I
at some
meant
of
at
the
all.
jokes
Sorry.
that were made, especially because sitting in the row in front of us to the left was a family with like an 8-year-old kid and a 10-year-old kid. And I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. Why are people bringing young kids? It's probably an anomaly. But Dave from Denver says he just saw it today. There were a bunch of under 18s in his row as well. So I could see like, 14 to 18 maybe, but like 8-year-old kids in this movie, really? That's a
I'm
choice.
I'm kind of out of touch with what kids, can tolerate and go for these days. But what I
Mm,
will say before I know we want to get into spoilers. What I will say is I think the choice to put these two characters together was kind of brilliant. Even if,
mm,
like you said, I think we're all pretty in agreement that the plot was pretty meh and really doesn't do anything in the end. But putting these two characters together, you have the quippy, like
mhm,
smart aleck, Deadpool, and then you have the deadpan like Hugh Jack. I think he's a perfect foil,
mhm.
for that kind of stuff, and and even Jackman's comebacks to Deadpool put him in his place a little bit. So I think that really worked very well.
Yeah, really good chemistry and rapport, as they say. Well, I think the bulk of our conversation is best saved for the spoiler section. Anything else you're burning to get at, or are we ready to make that jump?
I think the other thing that is sort of non-spoilery that I think was a little exhausting for me kind of coming into this movie was the marketing. And I don't mean like the trailers or anything like that, but the press junkets with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman on every single show. And then I saw them like every time I would go to a commercial, there would be like suddenly Deadpool going like, "Oh, well, do you want some beer? Try these beers. Oh, let's get in this car." And it was like I lost track of how many different products this movie was peddling in the
Mm,
lead up to this movie. And I get it. Like if you're an advertiser, banking your product on these names makes a lot of sense. But
mhm,
um, the thing I'm most excited about at the end of this movie is going to be just those commercials, like narrowing down.
mhm.
Doesn't have anything to do with the
You
movie.
mean that they're
Just
going
like
away?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like we'll get back to like I guess normal boring commercials, but I don't know. It's just it was a little
Mm.
much for me.
That Marvel marketing money did its trick, though. I mean, this movie completely fucking smashed like all box office
Oh
records.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
everyone is going to see it. So, uh,
absolutely.
those Deadpool Kia commercials, I guess they did the trick. I don't know how many Kias people are buying, but they definitely went to see Deadpool.
I have a
In
real quick question for you guys, though.
Yeah.
Well, for Will, we saw the movie in our local theater, which it happens to be a Galaxy theater. It's a smaller chain, which is in multiple states, but it's very small. And we've been getting the Mark Wahlberg tequila commercial before the movies on the screen, and I'm just
Oh,
Yeah.
wondering if any other theaters are pushing for some reason. This theater chain is pushing some brand of tequila, and he gets on the screen
Mhm.
and he tells you why you
It's
should
it's his tequila brand.
have a drink. Yeah,
They have a
so
yeah.
partnership with him.
yeah. So I saw it at Alamo Draft House. So what they do there is in the pre-reel before the movie, they don't show like product commercials except for like
Commercial stuff. Yeah.
except for maybe they'll do one for like if they have their own in like theater like gift card or something like that. But then they go straight to trailers, and usually it's like half of the trailers are the ones that are designed to accompany the film, and half of them are like things that are coming out
Yeah.
at that theater, like neon
Mhm.
releases or what have you. So I get to avoid that. I feel like I think I've seen the Nicole Kidman AMC thing like maybe once. Which I know everyone else has probably seen a billion times, but I
I
kind of
haven't,
got
but
left out of it.
I did notice that it's become like a meme or a cosplay
Mm,
thing now.
Yeah.
To
yeah.
be yeah. Anyway,
Welcome
Awesome.
back. Or
aside.
All right. Well, people are waiting with anticipation for the
Spoilers.
spoiler
Bring
section.
the spoilers.
The delectable, the delicious Richard Hughes. So spoilers, yay. Richard, we're gonna serve those spoilers up hot and ready for you. By the way, if you ever get to meet Richard in person, not only is he a very sexy
Very
man,
cool.
He is a super sweetheart. Love and adore you, Richard. So good to see you pop up here. All right, let's do it. We are officially entering spoiler territory in about 17 seconds, which is the amount of time it will take me to give our spoiler plate warning. It's kind of like a boilerplate warning, but spoiler. Get it? I'll never be a Marvel quipist, unfortunately. Listen, if you continue to watch, listen, etc., you do so at your own peril, because spoilers are officially happening starting right now. Do what you got to do, be where you got to be, but we're about to spoil the shit out of this movie. And D-Geek Will. We love Will as well. Got to meet him in Florida a few weeks ago. All the hugs, maybe a little leg rubs under the table, getting some pizza. I don't know if anything happened. Maybe
Not enough.
I know. We need more. But he says the intro I'm still living for. That introductory scene, we'll call it the Deadpool bye scene.
The credit scene, right? Intro credit scene.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What did y'all think of that way of kicking this mother off?
I thought it was, from a screen and visceral perspective, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it worked really well. It was fun, ultra violent, obviously. But again, I've seen people have issue with the whole thing, right? So Ryan Reynolds goes out and does he bring Wolverine back to life, or does he jump to another timeline? See, all that stuff is super confusing for me.
He does not bring him back to life.
Nope.
He does not. No, because can we get into spoilers for Logan or no?
Yeah, we're spoilers now, right?
Oh, well, we're spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine, but because Logan's plot is such an integral part, we're spoiling Logan too.
Logan dies at the end of Logan. Wolverine's dead. But this movie, the beginning of this movie, the whole title sequence at the beginning kind of riffs on that idea that Ryan Reynolds has to find Wolverine. So of course he tries to dig up his body, and the TVA shows up and shit happens, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's as D-Geek Will says, it's probably one of the best opening title sequences you might see this year. You're probably going to see this year. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of fun. And you guys can explain later to me how Wolverine even shows up in this film. So I get a little confused with all the timeline shit. I'm just saying right now. So, all right. And part of the front of this,
let's back this up and set this up. So my understanding is that Deadpool's universe is like dying because it lost its anchor being, who was Logan, right? And so because Logan died, is gone, whatever, Deadpool needs a replacement Logan to anchor his universe, so his universe can come back to life. So he's skipping through the multiverse trying to find another Logan that he can bring back to be the new anchor being in his universe. And so he's universe hopping around to find someone to bring back.
That's exactly
is that right. Well,
that's exactly right, with the intro scene being him having, we're kind of starting in media res. We'll come back to this scene a little bit later in the movie, but as part of this jumping around and finding thing, he starts off at his own timeline, just in the future where Logan has died, and is digging up the corpse of Logan to try to revive him. Come on, regenerate. Does not work. TVA shows up, and there's a big fight where all of the weapons are each of the adamantium bones of the beloved Logan. This was a fun opening in that, an opening has to set the tone for what the film is. And one of the things that I think this does really well is it says this movie is going to be funny, this movie is going to be violent, and this movie is going to be irreverent of any of what might be kind of sacred idols in terms of these movies. It had no problem desecrating the corpse of probably the best reviewed Fox movie, right?
Logan.
Logan. Yeah. So It probably went on a little long for me, just to be honest. But I mean, that's sort of what Deadpool does, right? You know, he's like a Bugs Bunny cartoon that's about 45 seconds too long. But I liked the overall tone. I liked what it was going for. I liked the energy of it, and I really think it put us off to a really good start.
Yeah, I super agree. Really fun sequence. I'm a sucker for 90s and early 2000s boy bands, and so when I heard that in the background, I was like, oh my god, no. And then the hey, and I was like, oh my god, this is going there. And then when he started using the bones as weapons, I fucking lost it. Like, I'm belly laughing like 2 seconds after the movie starts.
Nothing is as hilarious as adamantium claws ripping apart someone's anus. Like, there's nothing like it.
I mean, they say blood doesn't make a good lube, but I guess that guy would
Brad.
Anyway, Richard Hughes says 203 bones in the body, he states. That's 203 weapons, and I think we saw about 48 of them used during that sequence. So agreed, Will. Really, really great way to set the tone for this film and kind of lay the foundation for everything that's to follow. I will say we saw season 1 of Loki. We did not see season 2 of Loki. So I know season 1 introduced like the TVA and all of that stuff. I don't know what happened in season 2, but I think we got just enough of a gist of it to kind of understand like what the TVA is and the multiverse and da 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 da. But like, if you didn't watch season 1 of Loki, it might be a little hard to kind of figure out how they're time jumping, universe hopping. I don't know, but if you just accept that it's if you just let it happen to you, you'll be fine. It's perfectly safe, I assure you. Richard says he never saw Loki, but was able to understand. Well, there you go. Awesome, Richard. Thanks for confirming that. I do want to go back to a comment though, and this very handsome person, Steve Sosa, I promise we weren't skipping your comment. It's just we're waiting for a good place to bring it up. Steve says, this Marvel Jesus, as Deadpool introduces himself as in that opening sequence, was more like Marvel David Koresh to me. Don't hate me, guys, but I thought it was horrible.
First of all, that's fucking gold. Like, that's really that's a really good quip. And I don't hate you at all for that. I'll be honest. Like, you know, I mean, this movie has its pros and this movie has its faults, and it's really just going to be a matter of how those sit with you, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone's scale is going to hit a little bit different. You know, even amongst the three of us, I'm probably at like a 3-star. Brad, sounds like you're probably in the 4.5 range. Jim, you're probably in the 3.5 range. I'm guessing.
You got it.
So we've got a range here, even amongst us, just on how these things fit. So yeah, if you don't like it, fuck it. You don't have to like it.
Yeah. This movie, I know I've seen some people refer to this movie had its emotional moments as well. I can say for myself, I don't think this movie hit me with any emotional stuff. Maybe I wasn't as invested in the characters. You know what I mean? Like, I probably didn't bring that investment into the movie, so it didn't hit me that way. And I think I could see the spots where it was trying. But do we have an issue with this movie in the sense that all these stakes were set out in Logan and come to a satisfying, if not devastating, conclusion, and a movie like this basically undoes the whole thing? Like, are we kind of, we're seeing a lot of that. Do we enjoy that? I'm trying to
but did it undo it though? Because Logan is dead. He got his
with
ending.
Multiple timelines, you're basically nothing sticks, really.
Well, just
jump to another timeline.
Logan has, the stake was, so there's two things. The stake in Logan is, how is this old man who used to be the best, but now his powers are waning, how can he do one last thing to sort of be a hero and to save this other generation? And he does that. He dies a hero. The Laura Kinney character and some of the others go on, and he dies. He's never alive again. So nothing is undone there. The Deadpool area, the stakes are, because of the things that happened in that movie, which are whole cloth introduced in this film.
Mhm.
Now the universe is unraveling, and so Deadpool has to find a way to stop that from happening. And so he does that by finding the worst Wolverine and giving him a chance to sort of build another part to his story. So I don't know that, to me, I don't think it erases any of the stakes. If anything, I think the stakes are pretty large, right? This is end of the universe, end of the timeline stuff. And it gets saved, but that doesn't mean that there aren't any stakes. It just means that they had to overcome the hurdle to get to, to save those stakes. So that's, I think I land a little different on that, just because,
yeah.
And yeah, it's you make the case of like, well, we lost a Wolverine and now we've gained another Wolverine, but they're very different Wolverines on very different journeys, right?
I guess with the multiverse stuff, like if there's infinite like timelines and multiverse universes or whatever, does it really matter if one disappears? You know what I mean? Like, does it matter to me as an invested audience member?
Does it matter to you? Let's say there's an infinite number of universes, right? All of these multiverses stacked up, and specifically the one that you're in is going to end. Does that matter to you?
But I'm probably in another one.
No, there are other
because
gems.
other characters.
Oh, there are other gems, but
timelines.
You specifically, this version of you, this version of Brad, this version of your cats, this version of your families will be gone in this. And that's the stakes for Deadpool, right? He's built this found family over the last couple of films, and he knows that, he can just jump around and do something else, he'll find another Pete and another Vanessa or whatever, but they won't be the Pete and the Vanessa that he knows that he's built relationships with. His will be gone forever. So that's kind of the way I saw that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I would agree. Than me. I definitely agree with you, Will. But Jim, I can see where you're coming from, because it's kind of like, okay, Wolverine dies, Logan, super impactful.
We all cried.
We all cried, and now here Hugh Jackman is again,
which I love.
Wolverine, and so it's like, yes, we love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's great to have Wolverine back, but like, does it change the stakes of Logan or like lessen the impact of that? And for me, no, that happened. That Logan wasn't able to regenerate. He died. He ended his journey. Yes, now we have a different Logan in, but like things have taken a different course here, right? And so I don't know what they're going to do with that character moving forward, if they're going to do anything with that character. This may have been his like final swan song. Who knows? Because this movie, I thought it was going to bring like Deadpool and his found family into the main Marvel universe. I thought that was the whole point of this movie, and it was going to bring like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine into the Marvel universe. But we're in spoilers. This movie ends with them still in Deadpool's universe, right? And so nobody's folded into the sacred timeline or whatever the fuck you call it. They're still in an offshoot timeline. So we may not see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again. I don't know. I'm just thankful that we did get to see him as Wolverine again, especially that sequence at the end where the energy burns off his shirt and we see his hairy chest. We see those big pecs and those bulging muscles and those cum channel abs like on full display. I have been waiting my whole life for that Hugh Jackman Wolverine scene. The only thing that brought it down for me was the Wolverine mask. I didn't like the white eyes. It looked really weird. But otherwise, I was super in love with that.
Hugh's jacked, man.
DG Will says they'll be back for Secret Wars.
I think that's probably what we're going to see. Like, so the future of the MCU is really like this next phase is really about folding these properties back in. How do we fold in the Fantastic Four? How do we fold in the X-Men? And they have to have some large mechanism within the stories to do that, some large mechanism that has not happened yet. So I don't think they wanted to let this be the kickoff for that, because I think they've got other plans, but that this might fold some of those characters in.
Gotcha.
So I think, once we get to Secret Wars or one of those other things, I think we're in story. So, it's just going to be, we just, just
Yeah.
stay on the roller coaster if you feel so inclined, because I think we'll get there eventually.
Well, we'll see. But back to those channel abs. D Geek Will says the chubby TVA assistant was ready to lick that hairy chest at the end, and I feel like I could have been that chubby TVA assistant, only I would have stepped forward and maybe taken my shot.
I volunteer.
I thought he was very cute and would have loved to see him with a little less clothes on. But
maybe in the extended cut.
Maybe maybe if I buy the DVD on physical media, I'll get it.
Just get the director's uncut. I'm sure it's in there.
So you guys mentioned Fantastic Four. You mentioned X-Men. Is now a good segue to get into some of these cameos?
Yes, let's
that we saw in the
go.
movie. Why don't you guys talk about like your favorite ones?
So there's a few that we should really talk about here. First of all, there's the villain, Cassandra Nova, who has not appeared in any of these movies before, but she was the main antagonist of one of the greatest X-Men arcs in comics.
Was that the one that was V'ger? Is that the one?
I don't
bald-headed V'ger?
The bald-headed one, yeah.
V'ger.
Yeah. So that is... she's the villain of one of the greatest arcs of X-Men comics, the Grant Morrison, Frank Whiteley kind of run from like 2001-ish or so of X-Men. Charles Xavier's twin separated at the womb, and then weird sci-fi shit happens, and then she's suddenly a villain. I liked seeing her here because it gave us a really big level threat for these two people who could not die. And I think that was important, right? There are a lot of villains that would just be trivialized by specifically the combination of two healing factor people. So Cassandra Nova was fun. It also gave us some ways to get into the psyches of both of the characters. I like that quite a bit. In terms of cameos, of course, there's some of the minor villains from the early X-Men movies. We saw Sabretooth from the first X-Men movie, Toad from the first X-Men movie, Pyro from X-Men 2. I liked seeing them there. But I think the big cameos are going to be the ones that are either part of the team up at the end or who show up for a very fun misdirect in the very middle of the movie. Brad, how do you feel about, I don't want to rattle all of them off. So Brad, how do you feel about some of those other cameos?
I'll tell you, I did not expect to see Jennifer Garner show up as Elektra.
Yeah.
And I think that was hands down the best cameo for me. Especially when when Deadpool's like, "Oh, your Daredevil died. I'm sorry." And she's like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
I laughed really hard at that, just given the personal history, between her and Ben Affleck, and of course Ben Affleck going over to the DC movies. But that was great. And then I think the other big one for me, we had just come out of seeing a Channing Tatum film a few days prior, and I did not expect to see Channing Tatum show up in this film at all. And then he shows up playing fucking Gambit, and I just was like, what the fuck am I even watching right now? I'd known that he was trying to get a Gambit movie made with himself, starring in that role. Didn't happen, wasn't going to be a thing, but they fucking did it in Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm really curious, Will, what did you think of him as Gambit?
It was pretty good, honestly. I mean, he stuck out like a sore thumb. I don't know that he was a great Gambit.
He was in a different movie.
Yeah.
That accent and everything. He was just, it was over the top, but I did like it. I mean, look, it's a silly movie anyway, right? Like it's not like he's a big turd in the punch bowl, right? This is just a big mishmash and of fun. And to me, it was a fun role.
But the nice thing about it was, so back before the sort of Disney merger with Fox, Channing Tatum was slated to play Gambit in either an X-Men movie or a standalone Gambit movie, and then that kind of went away. So I think that's why those lines, it's very meta, of course, but those lines where he was like, everyone's like, some of us are getting to tell the story that we, the ending to the story we never had. He's like, oh, that maybe no one ever heard about, because it's just kind of tongue in cheek about like, his movie kept getting close and then kept falling short, kept getting close. So it was fun. And the visuals for him, for Elektra, for Blade, Wesley Snipes showed up.
Blade.
And then my favorite, honestly, cameo, I think that the one I enjoyed most was seeing Laura Kinney from the Logan movie.
Yeah, so
as
good.
A little bit older, you know, now she's her own Wolverine, and I love that. I honestly, if there is one character that from this entire movie that I would love to send over to the MCU, it's honestly her. I think there's a lot of potential to do some shit with her, and I want to see more of her. I want to see her story.
The cameo I think that got the biggest rise out of our audience. Not that I knew anything about it, was the fire guy, the Fantastic Four fire guy. That got
Chris
the biggest cheer and laugh in the whole movie, I think.
Yeah.
Chris Evans.
Yeah, because it's like this whole setup, and like Deadpool's like, wait for it. He's gonna say Avengers Assemble, and then he fucking says flame on because he's Johnny Storm from the really shitty Fantastic Four movies, not Captain America from the new Marvel films. Right. That was wonderful.
And it was a thrill to see Chris Evans. He was in one of the Stinger scenes when they were getting captured and taken to with whatever the supervillain's name, her camp, her whatever. And I don't know whether they told him this, but Chris Evans was giving his like real like Boston accent when he was talking in those scenes. And I think it was somehow intentional, but it made me crack up. It was hilarious. If you get a chance to see that Stinger again, check out his accent in there. It's so funny. It's not the accent he used in the movie, but it was in the Stinger.
In the Stinger, yeah. I think because of the cameos and because I think the action was moving the most, if I were to break this movie into its traditional kind of like 1, 2, 3 parts, I think the middle part was the part that I enjoyed the most, which is actually weird because there's a lot of movies that slump in the middle. And this one did slump a little bit when they were in the car. There was a little bit of time spent where it's just like, let's get to the next scene. But aside from that particular moment, like I really enjoyed this middle section of this movie. It felt like I was always being introduced to something or someone new. We were always moving forward with the story. The stakes were still there. So I really like it. It was basically, from the time that the two of them get together and get zapped off to, basically the end, the trash heap at the end of time and space, to the time that they leave that section. I think that's my favorite part of that movie, that entire run.
Yeah,
it's really good. The other, I don't know if this really counts as cameos, but Will, you were alluding to another big scene with all the Deadpool variants toward the end of the film, and I agree with you. It was fun to see a lot of the different Deadpools show up. There's so many different ones, but that really dragged out for me after we got all of these fun cameos from the different actors. Now it's like, now let's have all the cameos from the different Deadpools. And I was just kind of like, can we get just back to the story?
And we have to fight our way through them, right?
Can we just be done with like the never ending cavalcade of stuff? But we got through it, and we got some really juicy, fun stuff on the other end of that fight, and some fun moments during it. But I do wonder, what do y'all think about Dogpool showing back up during that sequence?
I'm good with Dogpool.
Dogpool's fine.
Dogpool took a very small portion of this movie overall and was cute, so I'm good with Dogpool. I also liked, I remember when Lady Deadpool walked out, I was like, I bet money that's going to be Blake Lively. And so I just sat there until the credits to make sure. It's like, oh, sure enough. Because that was a good cameo. Ryan Reynolds casting basically his wife as Lady Deadpool. Yeah.
So I was fooled for a minute when a character named Nicepool showed up. I seriously thought it was Jonathan, what's his name?
I did too.
From the
Queer Eye
makeover shows.
Oh,
I seriously thought it was him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, is that Ryan Reynolds or is that Ryan Reynolds riffing on Jonathan as Nicepool? That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Mm.
D Geek Will says his was the montage of different Logans and the Henry Cavill cameo. Will, I think that Henry Cavill as Logan smoking a cigar cameo just ignited a whole new love of cigar daddies in our community. So I could see your love for that.
And I also sort of enjoyed like when they were going through all of those. A lot of those are like homages to like famous X-Men comics too. You know, Age of Apocalypse, that kind of the blue one with like one metal capped hand, and like the red with like, you know, it was like looked dystopian when they were fighting. And then there's a famous scene in the comics where Logan is put on this giant kind of like crucified X. And so they went and visited that. I thought those were cool, but the one that I thought was the best implemented was the comics accurate Wolverine. For years, I've heard a lot of people say, wait a minute, Hugh Jackman is 6'2". Logan is canonically 5'4". This is bad casting because he's not the right height. He's supposed to be this short little dude. And so in this movie, you see the short little dude pop off the stool and just kind of like wander over. You're like, yeah, proportions seem off. Let's keep Hugh Jackman, you know. Not that they couldn't find a good short actor to have played him, but at the same time, like, it really just goes to show that when you're talking about movie adaptations, you got to adapt a few things. And sometimes the right person for the part, you know, is going to be a different dimension, but can still nail
it. We mentioned there's quite a few very long and grueling and gruesome fight scenes in here. So the fact is these guys can't be killed, right, in normal ways. Like they can't kill each other, it sounds like. They're just fighting and they have that fight scene in the car, which goes on forever. And there's a lot of, like, I would say, smart, you know, ingenious stuff that they try in that fight scene. Some of it works, but they can't really kill each other, right? Because they just regenerate. Is that the thing? Is that what it is?
More or less, like, you know, like there's ways, but both of them, again, going back to the comics, and they've carried this over to the movies. Both of them have recovered from like nuclear blast type damage, right? Like, you know, like basically just, you know, a few cells start to come back together. They're two of the best regenerative characters. So it gives us a chance to have those big violent fight scenes without having to have our characters immediately kill each other. And I think that's what's so frustrating for Logan through this. You know, he's stuck in a buddy comedy that he can't get out of. And in a lot of other worlds, he would just kill his buddy. And here he's just like, well, no, I can't. I'm stuck.
We're just gonna bash each other and stab each other endlessly until they just wear each other out, I guess.
Right. Yep.
They both ended up sleeping in the car, something like that.
Well, fellas,
yeah,
we're 20 minutes over the time we allotted to talk about this film.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much more to talk about. Like we barely scratched the surface with our adamantium claws. Do y'all want to make way for plugs, or do you want to keep talking about the film? Where do you want to go?
I'm good to plug it up.
I'm good to get some plugs in us.
All right, let's do one final round at least. Anything else that you want to say about Deadpool and Wolverine before we wrap our movie discussion?
A good soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
good soundtrack.
Great soundtrack. Good needle drops. You know, as far as needle drops go, right?
Yeah.
Score wise, I didn't really notice much of anything, but I wanted to ask Will one question. Will, did the last fight? I know you didn't care so much for the length of the last kind of fight scene with them battling all of the versions of Deadpool in the street, but I had a flash of that they were riffing off the Raid movies.
I could see that. You know, it's
I don't know if you got that or not.
Yeah, it's a continuous camera shot scroll.
Just like a
And the characters kind of come in and out of it. And there was a moment where I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't they all be regenerating? I don't know. And then they get to the end and then like they do regenerate. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
I can feel my brain in these movies like trying to kick in and apply like sane logic to these movies. And then I say, shut the fuck up. What do you do? Just eat popcorn and laugh.
Steve Sosa says, my favorite cameo was Peter's bulge when he wore the Deadpool costume.
Yes.
At the end. Yeah, fuck. Peter's so god fucking hot. That like seam that's like open on his belly, and you can see like belly hair like poking out. In combination with that bulge, Steve Sosa was incredibly hot for me too. I do regret though that we literally got a locker room scene with Peter, and Peter was fully clothed, and I wanted to see Peter naked.
Well, we
It's
did
very
get to see him at the party scene where he pulled up his shirt and he had the 2 nipple clamps.
We did, and
going down.
And that was very hot and funny after he like told the story like it was about someone else.
Yeah.
I may have had a little bit of reaction, you know, to seeing that. But you know, we could have saw his butt. That would have been fine.
Not erection. Okay, yeah.
Oh goodness, the movie threw a kink in with that scene, but it was a good kink as kinks go. But plugs, we need to get to butt plugs.
Yeah.
The part of the show where we put things on your radar that we love in hopes that you'll love them too. So we bring our Deadpool and Wolverine discussion to a close. Thanks everyone so much for sharing your thoughts as we shared ours. That was so much fun. If anybody wants to talk more Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm sure we'd be open to chatting with you. Feel free to reach out. But let's get into some butt plug action here. Will, what is your butt plug for this week?
So mine is a film that I've been meaning to catch for a while. It came out last year in Germany. I think it did a small theatrical at the beginning of this year that I wasn't able to catch, but it was just fairly recently released on Netflix. So perfect. You know, it's available now. It's called The Teacher's Lounge. And this is, I mean, it's a very different movie than Deadpool. It doesn't make, you know, better, worse, what have you, but just like,
it's a great pairing.
Yeah. This is definitely not going to be like watch one then watch the other type situation. This is entirely focused on this school for kind of like middle school age kids, and one of the students gets suspected of like a theft, you know, like nothing major, just like, you know, some money, you know, a little bit of money goes missing, like pocket change worth of money. So teachers do an investigation. There's nothing conclusive, but the main teacher here, Carla, feels that the student was maybe treated a little unfairly, but she wants to get to the bottom of it and kind of prove him, you know, innocent or figure something out. So she decides to enact a plan to try to catch who she thinks might be doing it. And in the process, she does. But the problem with that is that there are consequences to that action, which slowly erode kind of the trust that people have in her and the trust that she has in the institution that she works in. This is a delicate, tense little movie that the stakes are super low, but they're also very personally high. It's performed just all the way through exquisitely, especially by the lead in this, an actress who I'm not super familiar with, named Leonie Benish. But this is just a good story. This is a good story told well, and that's what I really like out of these types of finds. So it's called The Teacher's Lounge. It's on Netflix. It's super good.
Putting it on my list, Will. Thank you. I've been I know I have a list like a mile long of movies, but like sometimes it's the ones that I hear about like most recently that are the ones that I, you know, kind of want to dive into, and that'll go at the top of my list. But thanks for that.
You know, I don't know if this is a good time to bring this up, babe, but I have an observation. Can I share it with you before you give your butt plug?
Yeah.
I have noticed that the more YouTube videos you watch, the longer and longer your movie list gets.
Yeah. This is thanks for that criticism. Thanks for that criticism. Yeah.
I think it's adorable. It's adorable.
Also, the more time I spend, you know, in my day job and, you know, house projects and errands and every thing else.
It's actually
might
not a
longer be-
criticism.
I
It's not
know.
a criticism.
I understand. I
I
think it's
actually love it. You've ignited my love for YouTube, babe. I used to see
No.
YouTube as like a
No.
necessary evil, like just
a
a
time
place to
waster.
go. When
Don't go, babe. Don't go. Do
but
not go.
I've started finding random things like Star Trek Acid Party lately, which if you haven't seen that, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But just sometimes, like Will, for reference, we'll just be sitting on the couch at night, like you and Scott do, and we'll watch stuff until I'm like watched out, but I still want to spend time with Jim, so I stay on the couch on my phone, and he'll put on like the randomest stuff. And there's this like super fucking hot like bear RV camper dude who does camping videos, and I love it when he puts those on, but he never gets shirtless. Makes me mad.
No, I know.
Boo!
Boo.
Anyway, Jim, when you're not watching hot bear RV YouTubers,
Sure.
what's something that you've maybe seen that you want to put on other people's radar, movie wise?
Well, as we said, it's been several weeks. Well, it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since we've been on, and this is one we might have reviewed had we gotten a show out earlier. And it's one that I saw a trailer for, and it kind of interested me. But you know how there's some of these movies, you watch them and then you realize like, oh my God, I am totally on this movie's wavelength. Like this is so right up my alley. I am just digging in and loving this. And a movie came out recently called Long Legs. You may have heard of it. It might be still around in some theaters. It's kind of advertised as a horror movie, but in my mind, to me, it's more of a thriller kind of crime procedural movie with a few little elements of horror. It's not a traditional horror movie. This movie is in the vein of something like Zodiac or Silence of the Lambs, even maybe. This movie is directed by somebody named Oz, short for Oswald Perkins. And if that name sounds familiar to you, he is the son of Anthony Perkins, who is Norman Bates in the original Psycho. So he's he's got horror thriller kind of movie stuff in his blood, I guess. Because I really, really dug this movie called Long Legs. It stars some people you might know. Micah Monroe is the lead here. She plays the FBI agent, who is trying to, I'll read this real quick. She's on a case. She has some kind of a sixth sense, I guess you could say. She's a little clairvoyant, and she's trying to uncover a series of occult clues to track a serial killer. Nicolas Cage is in this film. By the way, Nicolas Cage, I think, is doing some of the best work of his career right now. He's in so many movies that are flying under the radar. Like we're watching Inside Out 2. We're watching, Deadpool and Wolverine and these big movies. And he's flying like under the radar. We saw him in one earlier this year. It's a kind of a monstery movie called Arcadian, which I really dug. We saw that at South by Southwest, by the way, which was one of my favorites from the festival that when it came out, like, not many people talked about, but he's in this one and is like totally off the chain. Blair Underwood is great in this as another FBI agent. And one of the biggest surprises is Kiernan Shipka, who, if anybody had watched Mad Men, she is Sally Draper.
My goodness, Sally Draper.
She has a kind of a small role here, but a very impactful one. Look, this movie, in terms of its overall vibe, and its plot, like its procedural plot, and kind of where is this movie going and how does it end up? It's so creepy and just gets under your skin. I really loved it. It's called Long Legs. Check it out. Don't go in expecting total jump scare horror like Annabelle or whatever, but it's got some elements of Annabelle in it, and I'll just leave it at that.
This is a vibe. This is an atmosphere movie, right?
Yeah.
Oz Perkins is kind of wild. Like, dude started as an actor. He was in like Legally Blonde and Secretary and a few other things before he shifted over to directing. And honestly, all of the movies that he's put out have been pretty good. He did there was a Hansel and Gretel movie that came out like 2 years ago or something like that.
Not
And
those Hansel and Gretel movies.
not the witch hunter ones. No,
Oh,
it's
God.
and it's pretty decent. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is really good. And then there's one that
Blackcoat's Daughter.
Blackcoat's Daughter would be, I think, before Long Legs, my favorite of his. But Long Legs is stellar. It's going to be that's the one that's going to be at my end of year list probably. Like it's pretty high up for me.
Cool.
Jim, it's interesting. I'm thinking about this now. So we saw Long Legs with Sally Draper. And then a few days later, we saw Twisters with Sally Draper. And then we saw the movie I'm going to plug with Channing Tatum. And then who did we see in Deadpool and Wolverine? Channing Tatum. It's like we're chaining these like things. It's so crazy how it works out. So my plug this week is a movie called Fly Me to the Moon, starring the aforementioned Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson, and Woody Harrelson. The premise of the film is, we're in the space race, and we're looking to send people to the moon, and we want to film that and send that back to Earth. But oh shit, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't work out? Let's film a pretend version of being on the moon to provide to America if it doesn't work. And that's basically the premise of the film. Scarlett Johansson is the 60s marketing exec, brilliant mind who comes
Mad
in.
Men-ish.
Yep. Very Mad Men-ish. Yep. Speaking of Sally Draper. And then, Channing Tatum is like the director at NASA of like this site. And anyway, it's kind of rom-com. It's kind of dramedy, which are, I don't know, like on the surface, they don't sound like things that I would super like, especially because, as we know, comedies aren't typically my thing. But I really fucking loved this movie. First of all, I'm a sucker for 1960s US aesthetic. It's part of why I loved Mad Men as much as I do, babe. And I know you love it a lot as well. But I also really love Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. And I thought that they both had some fun chemistry together. And it was just cool to see like the space race playing out. And it was kind of neat too, some of the conversations, babe, that you and I had afterward. Of course, you have been around longer than I have, and I think that's a very good thing. Jim was telling me about being a little boy and like being there for like the launch. And Jim, I mean, that's your story. You can talk about it if you want, but
yeah.
Cool to hear.
Growing up, I mean, during the 60s and the space race, it was right there in front of us the whole time. And a lot of kids, especially a lot of little kids like me wanted to be a fucking astronaut. When they grew up, I mean, they pretended to be astronauts and wanted to read everything about space and space travel and spaceships and rockets and all that stuff. And this movie kind of brings a lot of that back to the surface. It's got some great needle drops too from the 60s, which I really love. This movie was really solid. I think was way better than it kind of had any right to be. It was a little strange to see this movie. I'm like, this movie's not too bad. I didn't expect to like it, and I did like it quite a bit.
Yeah,
so we got we have a double butt plug on that
one. A two-headed butt plug, if you will. Anyway, whoa. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up for this week. Jim, well, guys, it sure was nice getting back together. I know this summer has just been nuts with like travel, and I fucking tore a quadricep muscle and was laid up for 2 weeks, and all kinds of things are happening. But I love you both, and I love that we get to do this. And everyone who tuned in, we love you too, and we'd love to keep the conversation.
We had going. a great bunch of folks in the audience tonight, which is awesome.
We did,
a lot of great comments.
Well, I see you making that heart symbol, and everybody deeply feel that, and definitely looking forward to keeping the convo going. And if people want to reach out to do that with us, let's let them know how they can get in touch. Jim, where can folks find you online?
You can see my movie diary, like what I'm watching, how I rate every movie that I watch on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com or through the Letterboxd app. My handle on there is at JJP Out West. My initials, JJP, and then Out West, all one word. And I'm also on Facebook under Jim Pugliafico, my regular real name.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Will, how about you, friend?
Predominantly I'm on Facebook these days, so just search for William Lindis and give me an ad there. But also follow along with me on my movie journey on Letterboxd. I'm the movie bear over there, so give me a follow.
All right. Thanks, Will. Folks, you can find me on Facebook. I'm the Brad Harris, who likely has bear, chub, chaser, otter, dolphin, wolf, etc. friends in common with you. Please send a message first. Let me know you're coming from the show so I know you aren't a clever bot. Although if you're a clever bot and you're listening right now you know the code words to get through my filter. I'm going to have to work on that. Anyway, you can also follow me on Letterboxd. Over there, I am at iBradPro. I rate every movie I see, and William Lindis, I continue to attribute that to you since you gave me the challenge a couple of years ago. Every once in a while, I'll post a snarky little like 2-sentence review or something, but it's mostly just a diary for me. So it's been interesting having a few people like reach out and start interacting through there recently. It's kind of fun to connect and compare diaries and share thoughts. So if you're on Letterboxd, feel free to add me. Folks, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. We're looking forward to what comes next. We'll let you know what that's going to be. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always, and hope that you stay safe, see some great movies, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.